Week 4 of the NFL season shattered everybody's expectations. The Cowboys and the Packers got an absolute shootout on Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs appear to be back on top of the world, and Jaxson Dart was not the worst quarterback in football, to many people's surprise. We'll get into all that and more in today's episode, but if you are a fan of the Thicc channel, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and let's get rolling with the Sunday night game. And if you're a Cowboys fan, you cannot help but come away from that game a little bit encouraged. Yes, your defense was awful. You already knew that. What you saw was an MVP-level performance from Dak Prescott against what had been a really solid defense first 3 weeks of the year. He absolutely lit up the Packers' weak secondary, and credit to Terrence Steele, he held up a lot better against Micah than I expected, but given time in the pocket and even with pressure in his face, Dak was surgical, getting the ball to his receivers, letting them make plays, putting it in incredibly tight windows. The running game did very well against the Packers' front seven. You saw a little bit of that advertised Micah Parsons' inability to defend the run, and you're encouraged by that. You think if you're a Cowboys fan, okay, we can win some shootouts, we can maybe snag 9, 10 wins, creep into the playoffs, and once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. So encouraging for the Cowboys. Great game by Dak. If he was on a better team, he would probably be in the MVP conversation, but given how other quarterbacks are playing this year, he may still be in that.
I had a few big takeaways from this game. One is the Cowboys are the Browns, just the complete opposite. With the level that Dak Prescott is playing at, Brian Schottenheimer does not seem to be a bad play caller by any stretch of the imagination. This Cowboys offense has the ability to put up points and put up points quickly. It's just their defense is so pathetic. Another week where they gave up 40-plus points. Their secondary can't guard any receiver. I mean, even the big play to Matthew Golden down the field where the Packers receivers between him and Dontavian Wicks clearly had a miscommunication where in the same exact spot, they still can't guard them. So the secondary, pathetic. They actually sacked Jordan Love a little bit. They got to him sometimes, but the defense is just so bad. Josh Jacobs had his way with him. Jordan Love had his way with them. And on the offensive side of the ball, when it comes to George Pickens, he is at his best when he is the team's #1 receiver, when the lights are the brightest, shining just on him. He had his breakout game. We didn't have the same exact emotional antics where he's grabbing or about to grab a DB's ankle to try and toss him to the ground. He didn't do that, but he got close to doing that. I forget which game that was.
So you're mad at him for something he didn't do, and his breakout game comes against by far the worst secondary he's played, when his O-line and quarterback play the best, and when he is the sole #1 focus of the offense. I think George Pickens' lack of high-low production through 3 games is a lot more to him being new in the offensive system and working through some tougher defenses than it does with him just needing to be the guy. He'll be just fine as a wide receiver too once CeeDee Lamb comes back.
He did not have the same emotional, mental mistakes that we saw him kind of flash through the first 3 weeks.
Saw him flash. Okay, he thought about being angry, thought about getting upset. Maybe that's because the offense was actually scoring points.
Didn't block on run plays.
He blocked just fine on run plays. I refuse to believe you're going out there and, oh, let's get the all-22. Let's see how George Pickens does in the backs. I get out of here, man. You are full of malarkey. Speaking of malarkey, the Packers secondary is terrible. Their offensive line, with Zach Tom off the field, that unit struggles a little bit. Didn't struggle a lot. The Packers still found a way to score 40 points. But you've got to be a little bit concerned if you're Green Bay. You know you are eventually going to run into a defense which is not going to let you march down the field through the air on them over and over again against a real contender. And when that happens, Jordan Love is not going to be able to score 40 points. They're not going to be able to throw for 300 yards, and your defense is going to get cooked, assuming they can block Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary, which has been proven good offensive lines can. So this feels like a team which is being talked about as one of the best in the NFC, but now, once again, looks like the 6th or the 7th seed in the conference. They'll make the playoffs. The rest of the NFC North, besides the Lions, is struggling, and they already beat the Lions in week 1, so that's a good spot to be in. Maybe they win the division. Maybe they grab the 3 or the 4 seed, but this is not a top-tier contender.
They just came back down to earth to what the Packers have always been in week 1 when they got that massive win over the Lions. You're like, oh, this defense is awesome with Micah Parsons a part of it. This offense, they're really going to have things going. They got quality wide receivers all over the place. But against the Cowboys, it was more of the same. Against the Browns last week, a little bit of the same, where they're just a very good team that has some glaring weaknesses, and they'll get by. They'll outcoach you in some elements, but they're not one of those top-tier teams. Do we think they're going to make it to the playoffs and be the team to beat? No, I think they've always been. They're not exactly putting on the same performances that the Lions have been after their week 1 loss. So I think the Packers, they've taken a step back in my mind and many people's minds after the last 2 weeks.
Right where I expect them to be. And I was called a madman for predicting Green Bay would have a tie this season. Now look at where they're at. You know, I might throw a second one in there and say that we're going to pick up a second tie this year. Has an NFL team ever tied twice in the season before?
I have no idea.
Flash a graphic up on the screen. Take a little bit more time hedging, why don't you? Anyway.
The last thing I wanted to say about the Packers, I know you mentioned the Cowboys handled Micah Parsons a lot better than you expected. I think an element to that was this Cowboys offensive line has practice against Micah Parsons more than any other offensive line in the NFL. So there's a degree of familiarity with having to block Micah Parsons and how you can potentially limit him the most.
I have seen the practice footage. I assure you Terrence Steele was getting fried plenty when those two went at it in one-on-one reps. So this was just an anomaly. Micah Parsons was awarded a sack on Dak Prescott, which really wasn't a sack. Dak was clearly a runner in that setting.
Touchdown-saving play.
Again, it was a good play, but I'm saying he didn't have a sack. He didn't have a ton of tackles. He was not an overly dominant player. Had a few flashy moments, a few pressures, but it was certainly a disappointing homecoming for Micah. Speaking of disappointing, the Ravens are just a mess right now. They did not get to go out to an early lead. They did not get to just dictate the game and run the ball down the Chiefs' throats. Their defense now missing 6 starters. Looks like they're on par with the Cowboys in terms of their inability to stop the pass, and they were just torched. Now Lamar Jackson dealing with an injury. Offense, pathetic. Defense, even worse. And you are beginning to question, okay, now they're 2 games back in the NFC North. Are they going to be able to catch up? And if they aren't, are they going to be good enough to make the playoffs in the AFC? There are 7 spots now. It's a lot easier than it used to be, and the conference in general is flailing due to injuries, but this is a mediocre at best Ravens team who is now dealing with their star player having a hamstring injury, hindering the best part of his game. So it's all panic bells going in Baltimore. The sirens are going off. Something needs to change ASAP or this team is going to waste another year of Lamar's prime.
What people are going to talk about after this game and continue to talk about is just how bad this Ravens defense is. I mean, their defense looks pathetic through injuries when they were healthy. It hasn't been good. And this game says a lot about the importance of week 1 because if that Bills kick does not go through the uprights in the 4th quarter or the Ravens are able to pull it out in overtime, being 2-2 with Lamar Jackson potentially missing a few games feels a lot better, and maybe you float a win here or there with Cooper Rush and the dominance of Derrick Henry. But being 1-3, we're effectively a quarter way through the season. I know now you can't really say that because there's 17 games, but the Ravens just are not in a good spot. And if the team like the Steelers in the AFC North continues to squeak games out here or there, all of a sudden, maybe you have the Steelers of all teams finding a way to win the division if this Ravens team cannot win with Cooper Rush at quarterback.
Well, to be fair, if you told Steelers fans and us in general that, okay, Joe Burrow's going to miss a big chunk of the season and now Lamar's going to be dealing with an injury, we might have said, okay, Pittsburgh's got that division. They're dealing with a favorable set of circumstances up there in the Steel City.
And we would be pushed even further in that direction if we would hear that the Ravens are starting 1-3, losing a close one to the Bills and getting shellacked by the Chiefs. So I think for the Ravens, a problem with their offense, especially with how their defense has been playing, is that they need to commit more to just the Derrick Henry experience if they want any hope, any sliver of hope of protecting their defense. It is playing ball control football where they have the ball 70% of the game to keep their defense off the field, limit the possessions and opportunities the other team's offense has to try and go score a touchdown, because with this defense, it's almost a guarantee every time the other team touches the ball, they're going to get points. And you just need to limit those possessions, limit those opportunities. So if you do get a stop, it means a lot more for your team.
I mean, the games actually moved the ball fairly well through the first 3 weeks of the season. Detroit and Buffalo, they did run the ball at a high level. It's just the Browns completely shut them down because of how well their defensive line played. Now the Chiefs really hindered them because they got out to an early lead. This defense is so bad that it wouldn't matter if you were trying to protect them with your offense. If you don't have Lamar on the field and you can't run every single play, the defense is going to find its way back on the field, and they're probably going to get scored on. You can play complimentary football as much as you want, but your defense has to give you something. I just don't think Baltimore is good enough to do that. It is irrelevant if they just have a 90-yard drive to start the game, because even if that drive results in a touchdown, guess what? Other team gets the ball back, scores.
It potentially would still result in the other team winning, but if you want to increase your percent chance, increase the probability that you're going to win a football game, I think the only way to do that for the Ravens with the injuries they've suffered on defense and how the defense looks is to limit the other team's number of possessions by controlling the clock.
Maybe that's the case when Lamar's hurt. They're definitely going to run it more. I would not take the ball out of my best player's hands for the sake of sparing my defense. On to the Giants beating the Chargers. And I will say two things about this game before I let my co-host have at it with the Jaxson Dart fellatio. But the big takeaways are Malik Neighbors gone for the season. That really sucks for his development. He was one of the better receivers in the NFL, certainly top 10 through his first year and some change. Him being off the field really hurts New York's offense and really kills their ceiling. Was maybe a glimmer of hope for them catching fire and making the playoffs with Dart. That's gone without Neighbors. But more importantly, Joe Alt, if that MRI comes back negative, if he has torn something in his ankle, if he has broken his ankle in some way, Charger season is just over. They've got no shot of making the playoffs without how bad their offensive line is. They're missing their three best offensive linemen a month into the season. Slater, gone. Becton, gone. Now Alt, gone. If Alt's on the field, Herbert has his blind side. He has some protection, somewhere he can just hunker down and know, okay, I am safe there because I got one of the 3 or 4 best left tackles in the sport doing everything in his power to keep me safe. Now that's not the case. You see, he looks shaky in the pocket. He's throwing with less confidence. He's looking over his shoulder, and then subsequently, he's throwing more picks. He's making more mistakes. He is hindering the offense, and I don't blame Herbert for that. His O-line is as bad as it has ever been. I don't blame Harbaugh for not being able to get 8 quality offensive linemen on his roster. That is impossible to do in the NFL unless you're Howie Roseman. It's just a sad state of affairs in LA. If all can come back in a few weeks, maybe there's some hope. Maybe they grab a playoff spot. Maybe Herbert doesn't malfunction in the playoffs. But if Alt's gone, season's over.
This was the most New York Giants win of the Brian Daboll era. You had the defense finally living up to what it was billed to be, albeit the Chargers offensive line was significantly hampered by injury. Jaxson Dart flashed his athleticism in a big way, played pretty well. The run game got going in a major way with Andrew Thomas inserted into that offensive line, ran the ball 42 times for 161 yards and a touchdown. But beating the Chargers, which is a massive win considering they were 3-0, came at a cost. You lost the most important player to your offense, Malik Neighbors, to a torn ACL for the rest of the season, hampering Jaxson Dart's development significantly, not having a number 1 wide receiver on the field, ruining your chances of maybe getting to that 7 to 9 win range, and just ruining Daboll's chances of keeping his job. It was a good win for the Giants because they beat a talented and well-coached team, but you lost your best player. With Jaxson Dart specifically, his athleticism jumped off the screen. It was clear he is a very athletic quarterback. He's able to run the ball at a high level. He runs into defensive players a little bit too much at will. His running style is a little bit too close to Cam Scadaboo. You have to wonder how long he's going to be able to sustain that. I would not think that long. Not exactly a great idea from a passing perspective. It reminded me a lot of his first preseason game where he had some nice throws here and there, some nice decisions, but he missed a deep shot over the middle to Darius Slayton that you wish he would have hit. He had some throws where he wasn't overly accurate. Maybe he's speeding up his process because it was his first NFL start and he's still getting used to the speed of regular season football. A lot different than preseason football, but not too much to hate on, not too much to write home about he's definitely the future of the franchise, but the aura is certainly there.
The only way Jaxson Dart's athleticism jumps off the screen is if you have been watching Russell Wilson, Tommy DeVito, and Tim Boyle play quarterback for your team the previous year and a half. That's the only way the athleticism really pops. My criticism of Dart remained the same. To Daboll's immense credit, that first scripted drive of the game, New York looked good offensively. After that, their longest drive was 35 yards. They really could not consistently move the ball all that well. Dart's processing still not great. Once he got off his first read, he really slowed down. That's why the Giants gave up 6 sacks. Tuli Pelotu had 4 individually. That is a testament to maybe Dart is holding the ball too long. The short underneath stuff, he completed. If your quarterback is not completing that, shout out to Russ. That is a really bad sign for their processing ability and long-term future in the league. That is untenable Anthony Richardson level stuff. But Dart did not go out there and lose the Giants the game. Should not have won them the game, but Herbert handed the Giants offense starting field position inside the 5 2 times. And if you're doing that, you're essentially punting on the game. So this is more of a Chargers loss to me than a Giants win. Long-term future, nothing really changes for the Giants. Chargers, real trouble.
For Dart, I just think the highs weren't incredibly high, but the lows also weren't incredibly low. And I would chalk up you keep harping on the processing. I chalk it up more to accuracy issues. And if it is slow processing, it's his first regular season start. Like we're not a year and a half into his career where he's still holding on to the ball too long.
He had slow processing 12 starts into the SEC, man. It's just the way of things. He is not a quick processor of the game outside of his first read. And to Dable's credit, got the timing routes, got the short stuff, did not make Dart go out there and make a ton of decisions. When he had to, generally got sacked, generally threw an incompletion. Will that change in the future? Who's to say? I'm not going to forecast a rookie quarterback's entire career off one game, but I am unmoved by this start.
Just as many wins against a better team than J.J. McCarthy. I'll throw that out there.
Against a better team. Do you think the Chargers are really better than the Bears with their current offensive line? I think those are pretty
Justin Herbert at quarterback and Jim Harbaugh coaching, and the performance that Amarion Hampton and Quentin Johnson had, your guy, I think you could say that.
Let me tell you about this Roma Dunze fellow out of Washington. Pretty special player there, covering up a lot of quarterback deficiencies for the Bears. If you think J.J. McCarthy is worse than Jaxson Dart after once, yeah, I'm not going to say that. I was going to go with something we would have to edit out.
Well,
JJ's better. It's okay. You're owned. You'll forever be owned. We'll sort this out. Hold on. Time out. Something a bad thoughts occurred to me. Do the Vikings have to go to MetLife this year? I hope not. I know they play. I hope they don't have to go to MetLife. If they have to go to MetLife, I was just
being a little tongue-in-cheek there.
I'm just going to be...
They both have not played a lot of football.
Yeah, but JJ...
In the NFL.
National champion, comeback win, or a go to real Anakin Skywalker. Jaxson Dart, copycat, ugly, stupid face paint. I don't need to keep going.
Do you have anything to say about your guy? Or
Quentin Johnson, I'll talk a little bit about him. He has clearly developed into a fringe top 10 guy in the NFL. Despite Justin Herbert having a bad game, Johnston was able to produce. To his immense credit, he is exactly what I thought he would be athletically coming out of college. When you get the ball in his hands, he is one of the best receivers in the NFL. Over the middle, holes in zones, behind the line of scrimmage, handing it off to him. You want the ball in Johnson's hands. He is better than anyone the Chargers have, besides maybe a young Amarion Hampton. That remains to be seen. If he is going to take that next step and become the top 5 guy I believe he can be, he's still got to develop his ability to go up and moss somebody deep. His hands have gotten better. He is extending them more from his body and making catches. But if he can develop that last little card, that last little piece of the arsenal, he will become a top 5 guy. He is just as athletic as somebody like CeeDee Lamb. He just does not quite have the ball skills yet.
I came around on Quentin Johnson after his rough rookie year, not to the same degree that Isaiah did by any means, so I'm not going to try and steal the credit or pirate it from that perspective and victory lap Quentin Johnson. But I do think I was a little higher than most people have been throughout his career, just not as high as Isaiah has been. And I think when it came to you preaching to be extremely patient, it is paying off. I mean, it's jumping off the screen. His athleticism is obvious. Playing a better role in this Chargers offense with Jim Harbaugh, has chosen to use him, is working. Even if he never develops the ability to jump over and use his 6'4" frame and moss 3 DBs, it doesn't really matter when you're using him to his skill set. Cooper Kupp didn't exactly ever have that ability, but he was close to a 2,000-yard receiver helping his team win a Super Bowl with the Rams.
The issue with Kupp is you want Johnson to be someone who can play outside. They already have Ladd McConkey. They can line up in the slot. So those are very different players.
It's just an example of you don't have to have the entire toolbox to be a 1,500, 1,600 wide receiver one for your offense. That is just the point I wanted to make on Quentin Johnson.
Well, I want Quentin Johnson to be a little slant merchant like a Amon-Ra St. Brown, taking the title away from the great Michael Thomas. All due respect to him. The ceiling is higher than a lot of people give him credit for, even though he's been succeeding in the year of our Lord 2025. Speaking of succeeding in the year of our Lord 2025, that did not continue for Daniel Jones. Unfortunately, the Colts fell to the Rams. And look, people will try and pin this loss on Jones. Those people are very insecure about themselves. They check the box score. They're former Giants fans. They need to do better. There is one person you can really blame for this and 2 sub-characters, 2 supporting actors. Adonai Mitchell gave the Los Angeles Rams 14 points. Just handed it to him. Threw the ball out of the back of his own end zone on what should have been a touchdown. Aggressively and unnecessarily held on that Jonathan Taylor touchdown run. Could have easily just gone in front of him and made a block. On that first interception from Jones, makes no play on the ball, just drifts away from it. Not a great throw by Jones by any stretch of the imagination. A good wide receiver goes up and makes a play on that, and at least breaks it up. A great one catch. Adonai Mitchell, clearly neither of those things. Supporting actor number 1, Xavier Howard. Dear God, man. Puka Nacua absolutely bullied that dude all day. And when Nakua got switched off him, he still gave up that 90-yard touchdown, whatever it wound up being, to win the Rams the game. He was just pathetic, the worst cornerback in the league last week. Sensational stuff. He has a home in the Cowboys secondary anytime he wants it. And finally, the Colts left tackle just got absolutely bullied all day by Jared Verse, culminating in a strip sack. I feel bad for not knowing his name, but it strikes me that he may be replaced fairly shortly. I also feel bad he had to go block Jared Verse one-on-one. They did not give him a ton of Tyler Warren support. Even then, Warren's not exactly a fantastic chipper. So sometimes that's just a great defensive player having his way with a mediocre player. At the same time, you got to be better.
The absolute laziest take you can have as a Colts fan or Daniel Jones homer for this game is to blame it solely on Adonai Mitchell as the reason the Colts lost. Now, was it an element as to why the Colts lost? 100%. I mean, he fumbled out of the back of the end zone on a would-be touchdown, had an unfortunate holding call on what would have been a big Jonathan Taylor touchdown. Those are all not good things. But when you look at the totality of why the Colts lost, the first Daniel Jones interception, it's not a good throw. Maybe you want Adonai Mitchell to fight for it a little bit more, but it wasn't exactly a good decision or a good throw. The last interception, the Colts have an opportunity to drive down the field, potentially win the game. There was still a minute left on the clock, and Daniel Jones just chucks it into double coverage, eliminating any potential for them to go down the field and score to go into overtime with the Rams. The drive prior to the Rams scoring the game-sealing touchdown, you have Daniel Jones. What have we known about him in his career? Does not sense pressure all that well in the slightest. Strip sack, Rams do recover, but they're forced to punt immediately after that. So there were some Daniel Jones mistakes that are characteristic of his prior career with the New York Giants that happened in this game. Or maybe, as you already mentioned, point the finger a little bit at the Colts defense that let Puka Nacua go for 13, 170, and Matthew Stafford threw for 375. So my major pushback to people talking about this game would be, don't just blame it on Adonai Mitchell as the reason the Colts lost. There's a lot of finger pointing that could be made at different members of this Colts team.
No, it's just Adonai Mitchell, and you're flat out wrong. I'll even admonish Xavier Howard some of the blame. Having a receiver drop a touchdown and that being the reason I was having him commit a hold, whatever.
He didn't drop a touchdown.
Generally
he
say,
fumbled.
I'm thinking of Stephon Diggs in the playoffs against the Chiefs. Maybe you don't want to pin the Chiefs lost to the Bills a few years ago entirely on Stephon Diggs. When you have a wide receiver give up 14 points and play super passive on an interception, you can go ahead and say, okay, this is an anomaly, this is an outlier, this is a particularly terrible game from a wide receiver. Don't blame all of it, fine. Let's cut this pie up a little bit. 70% Adonai Mitchell, 20% Xavier Howard, maybe the other 10% Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones played well enough to win that game. Certainly was moving the ball fairly consistently, put together some decent drives, got the Colts some points.
If he played well enough, they would have won.
Very good. Is that how it works?
That's
Is
how it
every
works.
time a team loses, all the players didn't play well enough to win? Is that it? Did Jonathan Taylor not play well enough to win?
Clearly not. They didn't win.
Yeah, all right, man. Podcasting equipment, put a tariff on it, put a tax on it. I'll just read off a TikTok comment section.
Was it the worst?
No, you're not jumping in on me on that stupid little rage bait thing. Daniel Jones played well enough to win. And really, the idea that you were going to blame him for that Jared Verse strip sack where he's getting crushed from his blind side through his offensive tackle 2 seconds after he snaps the ball, it's ridiculous. Burrow gets strip sacked like that. Allen gets strip sacked like that. Mahomes gets strip sacked like that. Good quarterbacks sometimes get strip sacked because a great defensive player makes a great defensive play. Didn't lose the ball deep in their territory. Got recovered. They punted the ball. It was not a thing which directly led to points. And you say, oh, Daniel Jones should have sensed that. That is a weird thing to argue about. I get Jones has struggled with sensing pressure in the past. His game against the Broncos, and really much of this game, he did a good job at handling that. It's just Verse got there so quick on that one play.
I said it was hints of vintage Daniel Jones on the New York Giants.
Vintage Daniel Jones was
it was
patting the ball 3 times, trying to leave the pocket, and then getting strips.
Did he play? You say play well enough to win? You could make that argument, but it was not. My main thing and my main pushback with Daniel Jones and the people that have been like, oh, he's so amazing, look at Daniel Jones, is that just because he's had 3 good games and the best supporting cast he has ever played with, a quality offensive line, does not mean he's all of a sudden Josh Allen, does not mean he's all of a sudden in the category of quarterback of a Patrick Mahomes, of even a Justin Herbert. He's not necessarily that caliber of player. I mean, he has Jonathan Taylor playing at an extremely high level. He has an elite offensive mind as his coordinator. If you want to say he's just a quality starting quarterback, Sure, you could say that, but stop putting him in these categories he doesn't
Nobody
belong
was
in.
doing that. You're just making stuff up. Oh, Daniel
There's people
Jones,
in my
he's
comment
the
section
next
saying
Patrick
he's the next
Mahomes.
Tom
He's
Brady.
Josh Allen. He's the next Tom Brady. No, there are not people in their comment section saying that. And if they are trolling you. No one is seriously engaging in that discourse. The discourse around Daniel Jones is that he is a top 10 to 12 guy. If you're going to get trolled, that is your prerogative and your business. And Daniel Jones, to his credit, through 4 games has played like a top 10 to 12 quarterback, although that is kind of saying more about the quality of quarterback play this season in the league. His competition's what? Geno Smith and his 12 interceptions through 4 games, an injured Lamar Jackson and injured Joe Burrow. Top 10 by process of elimination. Well, Brock Purdy wasn't in there in the first place. Top 10 by process of elimination is perfectly fine for Daniel Jones.
Injury elimination.
Yeah, process of elimination, man. And sometimes, again, Geno's not hurt. It probably would be better for the Raiders if he was, but
neither of us called Geno a top 10 quarterback before the
there's
season.
Geno Smith top 10 quarterback discourse. So we probably was that 12 spot. She tells us, okay, 2 people are going to go down. You might slide him into that 10 spot. I mean, I did because I've said Geno
Smith is also playing behind the worst offensive line in football.
Oh, so you can make excuses for Geno Smith, but maybe Daniel Jones playing behind the worst offensive line in football for the majority of his career deserves a little bit of credit. You're just the Daniel Jones hater. It's okay. For the Rams, you feel good about this win. The Colts were on fire. You've shut them down a little bit. You would like your defense to be a tad better. You realize you kind of got lucky based off how you had 2 touchdowns wiped off the board by Adonai Mitchell's incompetence. But all in all, positive signs. Your D-line played well. Puka Nacua had his way. Devonta Adams, great game. Stafford, great game. Not much more needs to be said about them. They feel like they can come out of the NFC.
I mean, Puka Nacua at this point, he is in that best wide receiver in the NFL category. I think we said it heading into the season. He should be right there with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
No, he shouldn't. There's still a gap, but
I don't know. He should be right there. The 17-game pace he's on would be over 2,100 yards. His usage, he's unguardable one-on-one by any secondary in the NFL. He's incredible. I think if you're the Rams, the thing you're just worried about when it comes to making a deep playoff push is your secondary, because it looked rough the week prior.
You're worried
didn't exactly
about
look
health.
Phenomenal this week.
You've got the lingering issue of your health if you're the Rams too, which granted, we've just harped on about every quarterback in the league getting hurt, so maybe that's not as big of an issue for the Rams.
Yeah, everyone was worried about Matthew Stafford's back. We see Joe Burrow go down. We see Brock Purdy go down. We see Lamar Jackson dealing with a hamstring injury. But Matthew Stafford still on the field, hence why I said I'll believe it when I see it.
You're just putting the mother of all jinxes on that, man. That is not a nice thing to do.
Knock on something hollow.
That is not a nice thing to do at all. Finally, touching on the Vikings. Carson Wentz, you have thankfully stopped any quarterback controversy before it can start. Down 3 offensive linemen. Maybe some of the blame, maybe a lot of the blame goes to that. Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, Brian Neal off the field. He looked terrible in the pocket, just held the ball forever, could not find his open receivers, kept trying to do the thing he did in Philadelphia where he ducks under a blitzer. And to his credit, one time it worked and it looked really cool, but he got sacked immediately after that because he couldn't get rid of the ball. Defensively, the Vikings held up fairly all right, except for one post route by DK Metcalf. He took it 80 yards on. Shout out to him. You cannot feel good if you're Minnesota limping this much through 4 weeks. You invested heavily in your offensive line this offseason, and now it's just a wreck. You got Darisaw back. Outside of that, nothing good happening. J.J. McCarthy behind this unit will not succeed. Very few quarterbacks in the NFL behind that unit would succeed. It's rough in Minnesota. And they've got to go play the Browns on a soccer field in England next week.
I don't think anything that happened in this game is all that particularly interesting. I mean, cool. Aaron Rodgers threw for 200 yards, 18 for 22. He's old. He had an efficient game. Good for him. Kenneth Gainwell, good for him. He got things going. 5.8 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. Yay for Kenneth. It happened overseas in Ireland. Weird things are going to happen. We've seen games in the past kind of flip either way. The most annoying storyline I've kind of seen happen after this game and in recent weeks for the Minnesota Vikings is, they should have kept Sam Darnold. Look at J.J. McCarthy. He is just absolutely atrocious. That is such a lazy take. Be patient. The Vikings picked him for a reason. He's only a couple starts into his NFL career. If you value the here and now above all else in anything, maybe they could have gone with Sam Darnold. Maybe hanging on to Daniel Jones on a cheaper contract would have been a better decision to be their backup quarterback. But just give JJ some time. he's not necessarily injury prone after just 2 years when he's still, what, 22 years old?
Yeah, I mean, tearing your meniscus in week 1 of a preseason game after going through college mostly healthy, kind of freak. Getting your ankle stepped on in week 2 against the Falcons, bad luck. The same people who have been crying for JJ to lose his job and saying he sucks are the same people who believe in Anthony Richardson still. It is an interesting group of folks who care far more about your combine performance and the one deep ball you hit all year than what actually matters in terms of winning football games. So credit to those people. They can take their short-term victory lap when JJ comes back and effortlessly guides his team past the Eagles to the Super Bowl, to Valhalla. We'll see who's laughing.
I still have a few Richardson stocks. I haven't sold all of them yet.
You should sell all of them. Unless you are going to have him come play tight end for Daniel Jones. You got to sell those stocks.
That has been our reactions to week 4 of the NFL season. Let us know your biggest reactions down in the comments below. Has Jaxson Dart saved Daboll's job? Are the Ravens completely cooked? Let us know what you think. Like the video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next one.